Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. And today we're playing some
called to me.
World of Warcraft, which is still going on. It's still kicking after all these years. Battle for Azeroth just came out. And so I've been spending some time doing some leveling.
It is a day for flying.
Nah. This is actually Legion content. I'm level 109. But I started leveling in Azeroth, Battle for Azeroth, the new stuff. Because I have some characters that were ready to go. And so I started leveling a warrior, because that was like... Warrior was like my OG class. Way back in the day. And that kind of got old pretty quickly. So then I went to Death Knight, which was like my new OG class, I guess. I started playing in Wrath of the Lich King. But I got tired of that too because, I don't know, the current Death Knight is not the same Death Knight that I fell in love with back in Wrath of the Lich King. So then I was like, okay, maybe I'm just not interested in melee anymore. So, I like spellcasters in almost every game. Why don't I level my mage, which was at level 100? And so far it's been going pretty good. My kill speed seems a hell of a lot faster than with my melee characters. So, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm about to hit 110 so I can move on to Battle for Azeroth. Every time a WoW expansion comes out, it's usually just like, I get to the max level again, and then maybe do some dungeons, and then that's sort of it. It's just sort of like a leveling experience. And that's usually fine. I don't have any complaints. But it's not like I'm a part of a raiding guild or anything like that. Anyways. This week on this channel, we had, of course, Final Fantasy IX and Octopath Traveler, along with the Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, whatever the hell it's called, demo. And that's that. I did have some technical difficulties, of course, but it's all sorted now, so plan is to just keep on keeping on, keep on uploading Final Fantasy IX. We're going to keep up with Octopath for the near future. Yeah, that's pretty much the plan. And that's going to be what the schedule is until Shadow of the Tomb Raider comes out. Because I debated about Spider-Man and Tomb Raider, but the fact is I've Let's Played the other two Tomb Raider games. I'm just gonna finish it off. And that's it. Unless I hear objections, but I didn't hear any objections last time, so we're gonna keep on until Tomb Raider. Over on the Exploring series, we had the first SCP video, which was very well received. A lot of likes, a good like ratio on that one. So I was happy about that. People seem to be excited for the future of that series. And, you know, so am I. SCP has always been interesting to me, so... The fact that there's no canon is pretty good. That means that... I mean, I can't really be contradicted in that much of a sense. It's just like, hey, there's no canon. So, I don't know what you're talking about. Not that I'm trying to be wrong or anything like that, but I'm always going to be... There's always going to be something contradictory. So, when everything's contradictory, nothing is. So then this week I worked on the Church of the Broken God video, which I think will be fairly popular. As far as, like, groups of interest within the SCP universe, that's probably number one. I would think. Back in the day, when I first got into the SCP Foundation, the Church of the Broken God was like 3 articles, or it was like 4 different things mentioning it, and there was really no cohesive story of any type. And there was a lot of other groups of interest that were just sort of on the same level. They were just bouncing around. Are We Cool Yet? And Dr. Wondertainment and Marshall Dark and Carter, and, you know, just all these little, like, mentions here and there. The concept of some, like, big overarching story seemed really foreign at the time, from what I remember, because it was just like, here's an SCP, here's another SCP, and there would be, like, occasional, like, overlaps and interactions between some SCPs, testing logs and things like that, but even tales at the time were kind of, like, a little out there, I thought. Because tales seemed to go against the whole structure of the site so much. But now it's a different world. I don't know much about the current state. Like, so many SCPs I've not read at this point. I don't follow the community much at all, so I'm a little in the dark, and that's where sort of the challenge comes from. But Church of the Broken God, I was able to compile some information. And like I said, you know, there's contradictory shit. So I had to sort of stress that in the video. But overall, I think people are looking for a sort of a cohesive narrative. I think I gave them that. But that's sort of the strange thing about having the cohesive narrative, is like nobody owns the SCP Foundation. Nobody owns Church of the Broken God. It's not like Marvel or something like that where they have final say over what happens. Anybody could write an ending for the Church of the Broken God storyline. You know, anybody could work with this. And so it's just sort of like the community decides, okay, this is a good fit for this narrative. So on and so forth. I don't know if we'll ever have a proper ending, but I'd kind of like to see somebody write an ending to it all. But the thing is, like, you're always working within a status quo. You know, it's kind of like comics in that way. Like, everything always has to maintain normalcy. So, like, you can't really have it where the Sarkics just destroy the planet, because the whole point is that the SCP Foundation is operating in our universe, on our planet, in secret. And so it's our universe, so you can't really fuck with it that much. But, I mean, they do, but it's all, like, past tense stuff. Like, this has happened in the past, and you don't know about it because amnestics and all this stuff. Anyways, I'm rambling. I think it's a pretty solid video. I had the technical difficulties, so the microphone is not as good, although I was surprised how well it turned out. I don't know how many people even notice. And I think next week I'm working on SCP-001, which, if you're familiar with that, there's no single SCP for number 1. There's like, I don't know, it's like 20 different proposals for what could be SCP-01. And so I'm not going to go over every proposal in the video, because even if I did, there would always be more made later on. It's not like I'm going to update the video. So I'm just going to go over like the top 6 or so, the highest rated ones, and just give summaries for each one of them, and just sort of discuss the concept of SCP-001, which isn't even properly, like, explained. It's not like when someone submits a proposal for number 1, it's like, okay, this number 1, it has to be representative of, like, the start of the Foundation. Which is what it sort of seemed like at the beginning, but then people just sort of ran with things, and that's not how it is anymore. About half the SCPs have really no connection to the start of the Foundation or anything like that. Some of them are really, really long. Some of them are really short. One of them, I think it's... I want to say it's Dr. Clef's. It's just called the Prototype. And all it is like the first SCP. Not even like the first anomalous thing that they encounter, but it was like the first really dangerous thing that they've decided they need to have proper containment procedures written up and all this sort of stuff. And so it's like, it's just written as like a really early, like there's no like object classes or anything like that. It's a good one. I like it because it's just so short, and it's like, yeah, this is the first one. This makes sense. But then there are other ones that are much longer, that are more involved and also pretty good. I do like the Broken God one, which I discuss in the Church of the Broken God video. It's like one of the lengthiest things on the site as far as like a single page, a single article, but it takes sort of the concept of the Broken God, and at first I was like, how can they write up the Broken God as an SCP? Like, this just doesn't make any sense. But after reading all the way through it and understanding it, it's actually really good. I like that headcanon, as it's known. Anyways, I'm rambling again. So that's SCP-001 next week. Should be pretty simple video. Not too complicated, because I just summarize a bunch of different SCPs, which I think is what a bunch of people want me to do, is sort of make summary videos for multiple SCPs at once, rather than just doing this video is on this SCP. It would be this video is on these SCPs. I just don't have any clear indication of how to group these things together, other than, like, through the groups of interest, like the Church of the Broken God. Like, that I understand. So I could do... I mean, I'm planning to do one on, like, Dr. Wondertainment, and a bunch of his creations, or their creations, or whatever the hell. you know, are we cool yet? Marshall Darkin Carter. I can do that. But like a top 10, I just can't imagine ever doing that. I can't imagine almost anyone ever doing a top 10 anything for SCP. I just feel like that's so contingent on you actually reading all the SCPs to give... I mean, not necessarily, I guess. People give their top 10 horror movies. I've done that. I've not seen every horror movie. But, I don't know. I feel like I've just not read enough. I would have to read a lot more for me to do, like, my top 10 Keter, top 10 technological, or top 10 mimetic, or I don't know. It's a work in progress of figuring out what I want to do there. Okay. Moving on. So I have continued to play some Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition, this week. Not a whole lot. I think we only got one scenario in. But we did win. It was a good one. I bought an expansion. I don't remember what it was called. It was the cheapest one. All it adds is like a few tiles, a couple new investigators, some new monsters. It was a real basic expansion. But it added a scenario in the app that was difficulty 2. And like, most of the difficulties for these scenarios are pretty high, and most of the lengths are really long. So you've got long, difficult scenarios, and we were looking for just some shorter, easier ones. So this provided that. God damn it. And it was a pretty cool scenario. It was this dinner party in this mansion. This guy suspected that one of his guests was planning to murder him. And he wanted us to show up and sort of talk to all the guests and figure out who exactly it was. And, well, long story short, he gets murdered pretty quickly. You cannot prevent his murder. It's definitely happening. So it's more like a revenge tale. And so sure enough, it wasn't that long, and it wasn't that difficult. We won, we solved the mystery, and it was all good. It's a fun game. Fun game. I recommend it. Speaking of fun games. Dungeon Crawl Classics. What a disaster that was. So, the plan was... to run this one-shot in Dungeon Crawl Classics. And there are pre-written adventures, obviously, written for level 1 characters. But... like, the most well-received adventure, regardless of level, for Dungeon Crawl Classics, the one that's most discussed that I've found is Sailors on the Starless Sea. And this is written as a funnel adventure. So... it's written for a group of, you know, a whole bunch of level 0 characters, peasants. And I was originally, when I first read it and I was planning to run it, I was originally planning to run it as a funnel. Which is all well and good. But I decided that since I had already run them through a funnel, and that doesn't really properly show off Dungeon Crawl Classics, I wanted to run a level 1 adventure instead, but since I had already read all the way through Sailors, and I was familiar with it, and it was well received, I was like, well, why don't I just do it as a level 1 adventure? Just, I shouldn't have to alter too much. What the hell am I even doing? Probably gonna die. Big ass spiders down here. I was like, you know what? I have no idea how this is really gonna work, but let's just see what happens. I'll run it, and we'll see what happens. And so we saw what happened, didn't we? So first of all, I was planning sort of that they would have, like, you know, 4 or maybe even 5 player characters, but we had 3, which was already not ideal. And so I threw them a bit of a bone. I gave them a couple peasants to go with them. But that really wasn't a big help at all. Peasants are just shit. Okay, let's try this again. But I was like, okay, you know what? We're here. We're going to run it. 3 player characters. Couple peasants. Let's just see what happens. You know, if they're smart, you can do anything. Right? Right? You know, as long as they don't just rush face first into combat and they actually think about the situations, and I'm already just laughing at myself. But okay. So the plot is basically there's just this ruined castle nearby. A bunch of peasants have been abducted, and it's up to them to save them. And so normally this is just a funnel, so it's just like, well, your fellow peasants have been kidnapped, go rescue them. But for this, I was like, okay, this village has gathered their funds to hire you guys to go check it out. And so it's like, they'll pay you like 2 gold pieces for every villager that you return alive. And that seems like a lot of money. To them, it's not a lot, but to a village, it seems like quite a bit. But whatever, it doesn't matter. They probably wouldn't come back alive anyways. In fact, I know that they're not going to bring back more than like 10. So they set off towards the castle. They do some shopping first, minor shopping. They arrive in front of the castle, and I'm like, okay, there's a big causeway in front of you, or you can try and look around the castle to see another way in. So they look around, they find part of the wall on the side has been destroyed, and so they can sort of climb the rubble to get in. Now, if they don't check out the rubble and examine it to find their proper footing. They cause an avalanche, which could kill all of them right away, which is pretty shit. But they have a dwarf with them, and dwarfs get an automatic check because it's related to stonework and masonry and stuff. So they have no problem getting in, and they're inside the courtyard of this castle. Okay, so far so good. They avoided sort of the vine terrors that they would have fought on the causeway coming in. And they also avoid the sort of beastmen that were planning to trap them at the front gate. Okay, good. So now they're poking around the courtyard. They see the giant sinkhole. They avoid that. They see a well. They avoid that. They go to the front gate from behind, and there's really... The beastmen are, like, upstairs in the gatehouse, which they have to go all the way through the battlements to reach. So there's really nothing there to do. And so they see a big tower. And they're like, okay, let's go for the tower. And I'm like, okay, here it comes. Because the tower contains, like, the first real big fight. There's 6 beastmen in there and a beastman champion. This is no joke. They are going to have to think their way through this a little bit. It seems that this group of players is a little incapable of that. I don't know why. Every time we do something like this, they just don't think things through properly. If this were Dungeons and Dragons, they'd probably be okay. Like, if this were a 4th edition adventure, they'd just fight their way through and win the day and everyone would be happy. But I don't like playing games like that, and I don't really want to run a game like that. I like games that require some thought involved. But there was no thought involved here. Basically, they smashed open the door because it was barred with, like, an axe or a hammer, which is okay. I mean, the adventure says that they can do that. And then they just, like, rush in. And so they get into a fight with 6 beastmen. And then the champion ambushes them by jumping down on them. Now, they have a bottleneck at the door to the tower that they smashed open. They have this small doorway that they could bottleneck all these beastmen in. Because there's way more of them than they are... There's way more beastmen than there are player characters. So, they are outnumbered. So they could bottleneck, but... No, that's not what happens. Thomas, playing the dwarf, he just charges into the big tower room and is surrounded by 6 beastmen. And also leaves Ziggy, the wizard, to be jumped upon in the doorway by the Beastman champion. So now the Beastman is just wrecking Ziggy's face. And the dwarf is surrounded by 6 beastmen and he's been knocked prone, and they're just, like, stabbing him repeatedly with their spears. It's not like this is some advanced military tactic. Like, a bottleneck should be well familiar to you if you play RPGs for a while. It's pretty simple. You're outnumbered. These people have all seen 300. Like, they should have... They should know how this all works. But, sadly, no. And so it goes as you'd expect. This was, of course, combined with the fact that they all rolled pretty terribly. Continually. I can't solely blame the rolls, even though I know they'd like to. if they had had a better strategy with bad rolls, they could have at least maybe retreated. But retreat was not an option for them. So Thomas, as the dwarf, was pretty hardy. He had a pretty high AC. He had good health. But it was 1 versus 6. And the numbers are just not going to be on your side in that situation. So at one point, I double crit among the Beastmen, like twice in a row. And so, yeah, he got slaughtered. I think Mertz tried to heal him at one point. He was, like, trying to rush over to heal him to use Lay on Hands. But he, like, failed his Lay on Hands. And I'm like, okay, well, you can always, like, beseech your god. You can ask your god to heal him as, like, a divine intervention. And his god is Cthulhu. So I'm like, okay, you know, roll your spell check to see if your god listens to you, if it listens to your prayer. And of course he fails it. And I'm like, oh god. Like, I'm trying to salvage this because this is a big adventure. I had planned this whole thing. Like, just come on. I'm like, okay, you can try again. You can really push your god's I don't know, patience. You can really try and push it. But if you fail this, you're just fucking turned to ash. I mean, Cthulhu wouldn't turn him to ash. He would, like, abduct him, or I don't know. You would do something other than turning him to ash. But I was getting frustrated. I was like, he'll turn you to fucking ash. And so, of course, he fails. And I'm like, alright, you're dead. Just piss off. He did manage to heal Ziggy once before that point. But, yeah, that was a monumental failure. And so Mertz was dead. Thomas was about to be dead. And Ziggy was in the doorway next to the Beastman champion. And he had already critically failed on his magic missile roll. Hey, nice, level 110. So magic missile was like his only damaging spell, because your spells are completely random. So he had magic missile, and he was hoping to just like shoot this this Beastman champion in the face, which the Beastman champion only had like 8 health or something like that. Like, he did not have that much, and one of the peasants had shot his like quill as a dart through his neck. Like, he crit or something. He did something really well. So a good magic missile could finish this champion off. And as soon as the champion is dead, all the other beastmen like run away, because they're just afraid. Although in this situation it doesn't make any sense, but I was like, alright, I'll allow it. So he critically fails on his magic missile thing, which means he forgets the spell for the day, and he gets corrupted. So it's just all bad shit. And because of one of his mercurial magic effects, probably from magic missile, the longsword that he had disintegrated. So he had no longsword and no damaging spell. He's just up shit creek. The peasants are useless. And so he's just like, okay, I'm going to use Ward Portal. And he didn't know what Ward Portal was, because I didn't explain the spells to him. I'm just like, you'll just have to find out. I thought it was sort of obvious, but I guess Ward Portal is sort of an odd phrasing. But if you think of portal as like a doorway, any sort of doorway or opening, and warding something as sort of like protecting or blocking it, I think you'd understand. But I don't know, he just didn't get it, or he was just trying anything possible. He's just like, I want to cast Ward Portal on this champion. And I'm like, that doesn't, you know what, fuck it. So I'm like, alright, just roll, and it's like, alright, you can have this thing, like, rip this guy apart, but you'll have to take major corruption. He's like, alright, sure. So I'm like, alright, you know, this thing is done. It's just over with. So I kill the champion, all the beastmen flee for some reason. He gets major corruption. But he lives, and he, like, frees some of the villagers. Like, there are some villagers chained up in the tower. So he frees them, and then he returns back to the village, and he gets some money, and that's it. It was disastrous. And yeah, maybe they should have been level 2. I don't know, it seems kind of overpowered. Maybe I should have given him a little health bonus. Who knows? Who knows what I should have done? I know what they should have done, though, and that is put a little bit more thought into it than just rush in. Thomas rushing into that room full of beastmen was just... I don't know. I mean, I don't know... I don't know how you can really teach someone how to think tactically. I mean, maybe part of it was like we just came off of Godbound, where we were used to being gods, so maybe they were just not used to this whiplash of being weak and ineffectual, and like you really have to think about how these people are more powerful than you are. They have more numbers, and you can't just, like, snap your fingers and kill. I don't know. But what I do know is they got slaughtered, and it was a disaster. And that was the end of the one-shot. Yeah, not the finest one-shot I've ever run. But, yeah. I mean, maybe it would have been better as a funnel, like if I just gave him a bunch of peasants, but each one of their peasants would have died from a single hit. Pretty much. Like, almost guaranteed. And so, the thing about a funnel is... partly you have a bunch of numbers, like you have a lot of characters. Partly you have to rely on just luck, yeah, like anything. But also you still need to think tactically. You need to be smarter than your enemies. I don't see that they were smarter than their enemies in this case. Maybe they thought, oh, we're level 1, we're powerful. We have spells and abilities and stuff. But... yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do about them. It was rough. So that was Dungeon Crawl Classics, which I don't know when we'll ever see Dungeon Crawl Classics again. Ziggy does not seem smitten with it, so I don't know if he'll ever run it. So at some point, maybe I'll do another one-shot, maybe like level 3 or something, but I don't know, maybe it's not the right game for them, who knows. So anyways, before we started that one-shot, we... you know, Ziggy and I were still trying to decide what game to do next, like what campaign he wants to run next. And, you know, I offered up plenty of suggestions. He had no shortage of suggestions, but he just wasn't sure. And so we're like, okay, what if we do, like, the Demon Lord effect roll? Because each, you know, you get that D20 roll that determines the effect of the Demon Lord for a campaign. So last time we had infection or something like that. And there's all sorts of ones. You got robot invasions and a burning sun, like the planet turns into a desert and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, okay, well, why don't we just do that roll? And, you know, we're not going to fudge it or anything like that. Just do the roll, see what the campaign would be like, and see if that gets any gears turning, if you like what you see. Because there are some that are less cool than others, obviously. There are some that would just be like, it's sort of meh. And there are others that are like, oh, that's really cool. So we're like, just do the roll. If you like what you see, maybe, you know, that'll move you towards doing Demon Lord. If you don't like what you see, we can sort of rule it out for this time. So we did the roll before the one shot, and he got Bloom. Which, hold on. I can probably tell you what Bloom is. Of course, I didn't have the PDF up. Okay, here you go. So Bloom, the shadow infuses flora with malevolent power, causing plants to shoot up to astonishing size. Forests spring up overnight, vines swallow cities. Overland travel becomes almost impossible. In this new environment, strange creatures skulk through grasses a dozen feet tall or higher to make a meal of whatever they can grab. Grass a dozen feet tall. Like covering the planet. So this definitely sparked Ziggy's interest right away. You know, the idea of civilization, like big cities just being overrun with vines and trees and plants, and like going outside, you're just like, the whole planet is like a forest, a really dangerous forest that has like new creatures, just like some SCP shit running around. That seemed really cool. So that's what we decided to do. Everyone was on board with that, and so the second half of that stream was character generation for Shadow the Demon Lord. So Shadow the Demon Lord probably has my favorite character generation of any RPG I've read so far. Just because of all the tables. By default, it's good, but there's sort of a secondary set of books, or not books per se, but it's called Victims of the Demon Lord. And there's a PDF for like a bunch of different races, and each one has like a whole bunch of different tables for character generation that makes it much more interesting and involved, and really helps expand your character's background. And so that's how we like to do it. And by default, you know, most of these tables are like 3d6, which means that it's on a curve, it's on like a bell curve, and you're most likely to have sort of an average character, like, as far as his backstory. Like, you're most likely to be of, like, average build, and you get along with everybody, and you're just, like, neutral in everything. Because that's in the middle. That's, like, 9 to 12 for every table. That's what you're most likely to get. And that's fine, because you might, you know, it's sort of balanced, because you might have some extremes one way or the other, where you might have some extraordinary things happen to your character and its backstory. But overall, you know, it's fairly vanilla. But I was like, okay, well, you know, we've made a bunch of these characters this way, and there's so many other really interesting things in these tables that we never get to see because we're just so average. And I'm like, all right, I want to do it where instead of 3d6, you just do a d20. So everything has sort of equal odds. And so this is the first time we've tested that. And so the situation came up where, okay, if you roll a 1 or a 2 or a 19 or a 20, which is not on a 3d6, what do you do? Originally I thought, okay, you just re-roll. But then we were like, well, what if you just, like, for 1 to 2, you take the 3 effect, and for 19 to 20, you take the 18 effect? Which means you're much more likely to get one sort of on the extreme end of things, which maybe is not the best way to go, but that's what we did. So Mertz's character most notably died. There is a chance during Karajan here for your character to die. Which means you re-roll, you start a new character. Or you can return to life, but you start the game with some insanity. And so, since, you know, you're much more likely to just return to life and start with some insanity than start over. So, he did that. I don't remember everything that happened to him and his character, of course. You'll have to watch the stream if you're really interested. But yeah, he went with the full random craziness. Thomas decided he didn't want to be that random. So he just went with a changeling, and his character's fairly average. Not much to say. But then I went with full random, and Mert and I even went with random, like, race. I just, you know, had the list of races, and I just rolled a d8, and that's what we got. So I think he's a halfling, and I got dwarf. And as you may or may not know, dwarves are like my favorite fantasy race. So I don't get to play a dwarf often, for whatever reason. But, you know, the most notable dwarf I play is Gug. I was like, okay, we'll see if I get a Gug character. So I started rolling, and I think I got, like, yeah, so I've been disowned by my family, most notably, and my parents are both famous. They're both alive, well, and famous. So they're either, like, really wealthy dwarven nobles, or they actually, like, own a dwarven kingdom, or they run a dwarven kingdom, you know, something like that. They are well known and wealthy. But I was disowned for some reason, and I think I got that I'm heavy, so I'm like a fatter dwarf, fatter than average. And for appearance, I got the worst. I got hideous. I lack body hair. I have a massive scars obscuring my facial features and a hobbling, lurching gait. And I have no facial hair. I don't even get to roll on the facial hair table. So I'm like a hairless, fat, scarred, hobbling dwarf. So yeah, I'm sort of a Tyrion Lannister a little bit. Like, even more hideous, although the show is not representative of that. But yeah, I mean, more hideous. I'm a wretch. So I think we said there was, like, some sort of mining accident. I was playing with explosives or who knows what when I was younger. And so because I'm so hideous, my family disowned me. Maybe they tried to kill me or something like that, but oh yeah, because I also got the you died life experience. So I did die, and somehow I was returned to life, or I managed to survive, or whatever. So I think my parents tried to kill me, but I survived somehow. So I started with like 5 insanity. I'm hideous, and I'm fat. What else did I get? Well, I think there were some other minor life experiences that occurred, but most notably, like, my parents disowned me. I'm hideous. I left their kingdom. I left the dwarven life. I think I apprenticed with, like, an artisan, and I decided that, like, this is gonna be Gug. So I want him to be into, like, engineering and explosives and all that fun stuff. So I was like, okay, yeah, maybe somebody, like, that did etching. I don't even know what the correct term is for that. But, like, you know, somebody that would, like, do intricate designs into metal. Like, fine etching work. I don't know what that is, but that's what I picked. And so then we got to, like, the personality and stuff. And so I think I got, like, the max personality. The highest one. So, such is your personality that you make friends wherever you go and are an inspiration to others, which is hilarious. And then for relationships, I also got really high. I got, you find it easy to build relationships and can overlook the flaws you find in others. But for desire, I got power. So my character desires power. And for fear, I got poverty. So I fear poverty, which is funny because when we start off this campaign, I have 1 copper piece to my name. And I have no power whatsoever, really. So, because my parents are famous and wealthy, and so I basically just want to be where they are, but I want to be higher than them. Most of my flaws just come from my parents. So I desire power, I fear poverty. And for obligations, I also got really high. I respect the letter and the intent of any agreement I make. I'm committed to following through on any promise I make. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a really good guy again, I guess. But no, then we got to morality, and this threw everything askew. Because I got the lowest result for morality. You are a wretched, foul creature, an individual ruled by your appetites and desires. You do what you want, whenever you want. And so this, yeah, really set things in motion. I am an absolute monster, both outside and inside. But for appearances, as far as, like, interacting with other people, I am, like, the kindest, gentlest soul you'll encounter. And that makes me even more of a monster on the inside, because I'm planning to just screw over every single person I meet, and will, like, slit their throat for a nickel. So, yeah, I am a wretched, foul creature. So, yeah, in most campaigns this would be questionable, but Shadow the Demon Lord sort of encourages darker characters. You know, there's all these rules for corruption and madness and marks of darkness and, you know, all sorts of stuff like that. So, this is going to be a very different Demon Lord campaign than the last one. The last one was ruled by Orion being, like, just the perfect good guy. Or as good as he could get. And trying to save the world and help everyone and heal everybody. And yeah! This is going to be the opposite. Gug is not going to give 2 shits about the effect of the Demon Lord or whatever. The bloom. His only goal is going to become as powerful and as rich as possible. So his goal, in the end of this, is just going to be to rule whatever, civilization survives. So I'm either thinking he's going to start, like, an underground kingdom that he rules, and, like, people are desperate to get in, so they'll give him all their personal possessions they have left, and he will have everything, and they will just have a place to live. Or he's going to have some, like, technological dome city or something where the bloom just cannot get in because of all these countermeasures, and it's the last bastion of civilization. Either way, he wants to run it. He wants to rule it with an iron fist. And his parents will come to the gates and plead to be let in, and he'll have them executed! So yeah, it's going to be kind of like sort of a sprawl campaign, I think. where we're not, like, motivated by trying to help people or save the world or anything like that. We're motivated by money and power and things like that. So, that's my idea. And, again, you know, I don't always like to sort of steamroll a campaign like that. Sometimes. But, in this case, it's like, with this character here, if you're not with them, it's gonna be real rough. So it's just like, it's just better if everyone is a less than good and noble character, I think. We'll see how it goes. It could be pretty short, but I think it'll be an interesting time. So I'm planning then for Gug. He's just gonna be a soul technomancer. All he's going to do is technomancy, which is like all these like technological magical creations. So at level 1, he can summon a automated bolt thrower. It's like a turret. He can summon a turret. It lasts for like a minute, but every round it shoots something for 2d6 damage on its own. And so later on I could summon like 5 of these things at once and just rain down death on somebody. And later on, I get to make, like, grenades and flamethrowers, and eventually I get a powered suit that I can hop into. I get my own little mech. It's actually not little, it's, like, huge. It's a huge-sized mech. And that boosts my health up to, like, 100 or some craziness, and it's just badass. So that's the goal. But Ziggy seems really excited to run it. He's got a lot of ideas kicking around. So hopefully we have a good time. I'm going to be doing some dark and evil shit. That's for sure. I mean, when the character generation tells me I'm a wretched, foul creature, I got to live up to it. But in a meta sense, I think, like, the thing that I agreed was, like, regardless of what my character would think or would do, like, I gotta be good to the party members. Like, for whatever reason, we have this bond between each other where we don't just fuck each other over, even though that's probably what my character would do. He would just be this lone operative that would just hire help and whatever, but, no. The party bond is sacred. Alright, so, I don't know if that'll start tomorrow, because I think we're still a little undermanned tomorrow, but definitely by the next week. We'll see how it goes. So, that about wraps us up. Check out Church of the Broken God tomorrow. We got more Final Fantasy IX and more Octopath coming this week. My name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.